Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report online Leicester, and thank you for joining us for episode 44, where tonight we're talking about the Leicester game. Is it time for change at the top? The managerial situation, taking your questions and looking ahead to Brentford, should I say. As ever, I'm joined by my two reliable gentlemen that will guide me through the show and try and give us a few smiles on the way. Nocky and Tyler, thank you for joining us. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Mirror football writer Ben Husband. Good evening, gentlemen. This could be a tough show, but this is the place I think we need to let it all out, share it, get it out there, get it off our chest. So, Ben, we'll start off with you on the happy tone of the Leicester game at the weekend. Let's get your take on the game, please, Ben.
Good for the first 8 minutes, weren't we? Thought we were really good. Should we move on?
Well, we were joking, actually, that Tyler and Nock were joking in the group chat before, saying, and Nocky said, if anyone says to me on the show that we play well for the first 10 minutes, but you didn't say that, you said the first 8 minutes, so you're absolutely bang on. Yeah, it was a good opening to the game, but it just, after that, it went to pieces.
Well, to me, it just summed it up. I thought they were okay for the first couple of minutes, but as soon as that goal went in, you can just see how fragile they are. The problem is at the minute as well, as soon as that goal goes in, we aren't winning the game. You know, we might get an equaliser at some point, but you almost know for a fact you're 8 minutes into a game and they're not going to win. And it's like the players know that as well. And they're just so fragile and so lacking in confidence and a plan that, I mean, we came up against a side that might have been next to us in the league. They were in a different league to Wolves in terms of what they did with their attacking sort of movements and the way that they kept the ball, the way they moved the ball. I mean, they say that there was 5 shots, but you look at what their 5 shots. Yes, the first goal was really good, but the others are all
almost guaranteed goals, aren't they?
Exactly. So it's all right having 21 shots when 19 of them are from Mendes from 45 yards. So I wasn't that interested in the stats. I thought, particularly as soon as the second half started, they just toyed with us. You know, when you watch that game and there's absolutely no way that you think one of those... I don't think Leicester will be anywhere near the bottom 3 by the end of next season. But I think Wolves will.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reluctant to make this comparison, but in the second half at times, it had a feel of Man City v Wolves when Leicester could take Wolves apart whenever they wanted to, whenever they fancied it. As I'm sure these guys are going to say as well, I felt like we lost a lot of heart. There wasn't really a lot of blood and thunder. It was like there's no way back. There was a little bit of push after 2-0 and after 1-0, but it just died off, didn't it? It was frustrating because I think it lacked leadership out there. I think it lacked guts out there. If you're going to die with your boots on, have a go, put a tackle in. And as Roy Keane says, you know what? I mean, I just kicked someone just to make me feel better. It looked like people were just accepting the defeat, but we needed to see a bit more fight. But we'll just moving on to Knocker. If you got any children, move them away from your laptop or your PC now.
I thought it was pretty pathetic, and I've heard people say we did well for the first 10 minutes. It means absolutely nothing if you don't put the ball in the back of the net. And it was almost exactly as we described it last week on the podcast. The first goal went in. I felt they gave up. I felt the big players were hiding again. You know, some of them are hiding in Mexico, but that's a different story. I think it was just it was just awful. I mean, yes, Leicester are a better team than us. They're not going to finish anywhere near the relegation zone, but that's a team that haven't got a point or a clean sheet away from home this season. They've lost every single away game they've played. Set pieces they can't defend. They're wretched at the back. They've conceded more goals than anybody else in the league, and we still couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And I just thought it was so similar to the West Ham game, to the Man City game. The first goal goes in, and we give up. Johnny had an absolute mare. I don't know what he was doing. I thought every goal was avoidable. You know, the first one, yes, it's an absolute rocket, but in the build up to that, we could have stopped it at source.
And we give the ball away, didn't we? So.
We give the ball away, we then head the ball back into play, which allows him to have that shot from distance. I thought every goal you could look through, and I think from the second goal onwards, it was almost like they weren't even trying for me. I mean, you look at the Vardy goal, you've got 2 players at the far post completely unmarked for a tap-in. Yes, the game's over, we know that, but you've still got a professional responsibility to react to those situations and try and get something just to hold on to. And there's so many problems there at the moment. I mean, Steve Davis is a lovely guy. he's got a great love for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and he's welcome at the club anytime. But if we're being completely honest, he's a one step up from a PE teacher. You look at what he's done managerial wise. The highest he's ever managed is with Crewe Alexandra, and he didn't do a fantastic job with them, if we're being completely honest. So to have him in charge of this club now with no clear vision of where we're going, it's absolutely scandalous. And it went the way I thought it would, but it was worse than I thought it was going to be.
I mean, I do feel sorry for the interim guy, particularly because he's one of us and he'll be feeling it. He won't be happy with himself after that. I'm not sure it's particularly his fault, but he's on a hide into nothing, isn't he? He's like, would you mind managing your boyhood club for a few games? Oh, by the way, I'll be to next year. He's not going to say no, is he? What? I do feel sorry for him. But
he needs to say no, though. Jokes aside, he needs to say no. The job's too big for him. He's way out of his depth.
That's a good point.
The first thing you should have done Monday morning was go into their office and say, I'm sorry, guys, too big for me. This ain't going to work. You need to find someone else. That's what a real support would. That's what any of us would do. That's
a really good point, Tyler.
Miles out of his depth, like Knocker said. What? Nantwich, Victorian, Crewe, and someone else pathetic. I think it's pathetic.
He can't tactically change it, can he? He can't tactically change a game. If plan A doesn't work, I'm not really sure we've got much of a plan.
That's not just a Steve Davies thing. That's been a Wolves thing for 18, 24 months.
And we've still done nothing about it.
What I found alarming as well is last week, in the build-up to the game against Leicester, he said that, he's not even interested in being a manager after this. Like, it's not what he wants to do. So why are we... So we're saying that he's going to do it for another month of a Premier League season. He doesn't even want to be a manager. So... between the two parties, he can say he loves Wolves and whatever. It's by the by.
We all
if he doesn't want to be a manager, he's not a manager. So there has to be a point where he goes, okay, this isn't what I should be doing, because it's, from all intents and purposes, from what I hear, he's really good at what he does, which is what he wants to do. So it needs to be taken out of his hands.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel sorry for him, and like you said, I hadn't thought of that, Tyler, before now, but that's a really good point. But does that then drop Wolves into it further when they have to put someone even lower down the pecking order in it? So
get a manager.
Exactly.
It'll make them go and get somebody.
I agree. I just get the feeling Lopetegui's got Wolves where he wants them, and they're just waiting for him to say yes. I don't know that. I've got no information. I just get the feel. The Spanish reporter said tonight as well. He'd hinted on that on the podcast. Is it Guillem? Is it Ben? Is that his name?
He said he's going to be in a job very soon. But what does that mean? What's very soon? Is it tomorrow? Is it January? What does that mean?
Well, for Wolverhampton Wanderers, it needs to be yesterday, because if this carries on much longer, we'll be cut adrift come the international break, and we'll be in big problems. And not only that, then how are we going to track somebody then? Because it's a mess. Just going back to the game, Tyler, I mean, I thought that there was goals in that game for Wolves.
There was four.
But Leicester looked ridiculously open, like there was opportunities, and it's just getting smashed is one thing, but to not be hurting one of the most vulnerable defences. I mean, the golfing class was terrifying. That team was below us in the Premier League, and they've proper slapped us. But my point I'm trying to make, and I know what you're saying there, Knocker, but for me, the door was wide open again and again and again, and we didn't take it, Tyler.
It was. I wrote a stat down today that someone tweeted 43 touches we had in their box. 43. How would you not score a goal if you've got 43 touches? I mean, Costa has to score, but I mean, it's just hit the defender, hasn't it, at the back post. Podence has a good effort. Keeper makes a worldie. Kilman's header maybe from the corner. They're good chances, aren't they? They're good opportunities to score, which, let's be honest, we don't ever do we? We don't ever create 3 or 4 good chances. So that is the only chink of positivity. But on the flip side of that, as soon as we lose the ball when we're attacking, the gaps between the defence and the midfield are embarrassing, aren't they? It was like half the pitch. And every time Leicester got the ball, they looked like scoring. So it's one of them. Yeah, it's a bit better that we're creating chances, but we let 4 goals in.
I mean, we'll never know, and I'm sort of glad I don't know in the end. But I kind of thought about the game as well afterwards as well, in terms of Leicester's patient build-up, and then when they had the opportunity, they cut Wolves to pieces. That, for me, was the vision that Bruno wanted, but we never did the final third. Or if there's not a proper pass on, let's start again. They kept doing that, but when they took their opportunities, they took us to the cleaners. And I just think Bruno probably may have watched that game and thought, well, that's what I wanted from Wolves. But speaking to people off air, the lack of 1-2s, the lack of creativity. The most exciting thing, I think, was the Costa step over to Podence. And that's the most excitement I think we've had all season in terms of like flair football and creativity. But that kind of thing he's missing in abundance. And we need a shot now. We need an injection now. We didn't get really a new manager bounce. That's not Steve Davis' fault. But the lift of a new person, we desperately need it. There isn't any point in talking about positives from that game because Ben's covered it with the first 8 minutes. But you know, I mean, that's as bad as it is. But something that you guys raised on the group chat as well that wasn't mentioned, and I think we need to talk about this now. I'm not really happy with the application of the team. I'm not saying people went hiding, but I don't think people give enough. And the minimum expectation when you're lucky enough to wear the badge of my football team is to give everything. And I don't think that happened. Did you see that in a similar way, Ben?
Yeah. Look, I just think as soon as a goal goes in, they're accepting that they're going to lose the game. That's what it looks like to me. I'm not even sure if it's effort or I just think they're just broken. They look an absolute broken team, and they need a new voice in there, and not a one step up from a PE teacher. They need a new voice in there to come and speak to them and try and reinvigorate this team because they just look mentally and physically broken. We look the most unfit team in the Premier League, and just mentally they look shot. We saw it in stages last season, but now it's every single game. Wolves look mentally and physically shot.
Knocker, do you know what are the most disappointing things as well is I almost, when we've conceded, I want to see people angry. I want to see them arguing with each other. I want to see pointing and two of them arguing and one separating them and telling them and resetting them to go again. It's just we've conceded. We're all like trying to bite the chair in front of us or swearing or whatever, but it doesn't seem any sort of. Where's the fury that you're just so easy to walk through? Who's angry about it? Who's upset about it? Who's taking responsibility to change it? I just don't see it.
Yeah, they're going through the motions for me. I think a lot of those players are kind of looking around and thinking, I'm not going to be here next year regardless of what happens. I mean, you look at how nice we are as a club, and we've said that on more than one occasion. I think when you look at Ruben Neves, he's getting interviewed talking about how fantastic Barcelona is while he's sat at Molineux. I mean, that's your club captain who's sitting there with a come and get me plea while he's sat in your stadium. I mean, how disrespectful is that? And I think we're so nice, and they all wanted Steve Davis in because he's such a nice guy. He's not going to cause them any problems. He's just going to let them get on with it. You know, you've got a £27 million signing who doesn't even come off the bench in a game when you're 4-0. Everyone's just going through the motions for me, and I think they are hiding. I genuinely do, and yet I completely get what Ben's saying, and I agree they are very fragile. But go and smash someone in the middle of the pitch. Go and drop a reducer on someone. Go and give someone a kick at the backside. Take a booking. Do something horrible. There's absolutely nothing. It's almost as if the ball hits in it and it's a bit like, oh well, never mind. We'll go again next week. We'll see if we can get something out of that one. And for me, I think it's awful. If someone got sent off for smashing someone in 2p, someone that took Vardy out after he took the mick in front of the North Bank, I think we ought to be really happy about it, even though we're going to lose him for 3 games, because you've seen a little bit of passion on the pitch. I mean, I remember we went down under Dave Jones, and I was never angry about that season because you knew the players we had were doing the best.
Ince and Ray, even if we're getting caned, those guys never stopped for us. They came off that dripping, and we had some memorable wins that were more down to guts, but there isn't a lot of guts at the moment, Knocker.
No, exactly that. They were passionate about what they were doing. They weren't good enough. These players are better than what we're seeing, and they're completely passionless, and we're paying the price for that now on the pitch.
Tyler, your take on the players' application?
I agree with both what the guys have said. I think Ben's dead right. They look broken as a football team. I mean, Max Kilman, what's happened to him? Like, he's just gone, hasn't he? If you look at the camera, he's just gone. The camera goes in when we concede a goal. He looks like a broken man. I mean, Collins.
Goal.
Yeah, Collins started really well. Looks like he's never played football before. Johnny, what's happened to him? He looked like he'd won a prize to play. You could go through every player, couldn't you, basically? Jose Sars seems to have lost that little bit of edge he had. But you can go through everyone. You can go through the whole team, and it's.
You know what? I don't think I'm going to criticise Costa because he's not what he was. But that guy still gets angry and he wants to win. So I'm not expecting him to be up and down the pitch at his age and having 9 months off playing football. But I'm reluctant to criticise him, to be honest.
He's probably our best player in all honesty.
I don't think he did a lot. I don't think he did a lot wrong. I mean,
one player. Sorry to interrupt, but one player who, if we're talking about application, I still think Adama Traore is trying harder than anyone else in the Wolves shirt. It may not always come off, but if you look at these last 2 games, to me, there isn't a player that's trying hard and trying things, because no one else looks like they want to try anything at any point. I mean, I said to you before the game, Ryan, about not playing Boubacar Traore, because at least against Palace, he was putting people in the air and he was snapping into challenges. And
let's just talk about that for a second. And by the way, I wanted to comment at the time, but nothing goes better together on this podcast than Mark Knox saying reducer. It's a moment we've all been looking forward to, and the two just sit hand in glove, don't they? I've been waiting for that all season. But how is Boubacar Traore? I know he had an illness, and at Palace, I thought he gave us a lot of what we hadn't got before. He was up and down the pitch. He was straight into tackles. He was fouling people. Yes, he got booked and he had to come off. Well, 1, he was knackered. 2, he's had a booking. So that's not a good combination for another booking. But how he didn't start that game. I know João Moutinho, and I don't really want to criticise João Moutinho, because if he's being picked to play in a 3-man midfield, then I think that's as much on the manager, to be honest, because clearly him playing left or right of a 3 is just not going to work. You need to have an engine to play in that position, or you're going to get found out badly. If he plays for me, he plays when Neves doesn't play, holding as a 1 or as the holder as a 2. You can't have someone like that that's been asked to protect the fullback, because his job then, when Bueno or Aït-Nouri gets forward, is to protect his fullback. And he's our slowest player. For me, tactically, it makes no sense whatsoever. And I just... Is there a clause? Is there because he's a big character? Is it because of his experience? Tyler, can you put your finger on why Traore Boubacar isn't starting?
No. And you said, without sounding like I'm pinpointing, like you said at the start, you feel sorry for Steve Davis, but you've just pulled up an obvious tactical issue that he's not seeing. You know, we're 3 overweight. I'm speaking not for you, Ben. 3 overweight.
I'll join them.
That watch the game of football, and you can see it happening. And as soon as that midfield 3 doesn't work, Neves, Nunes, and Coutinho has not worked, apart from, was it Spurs? That was the only time it worked away, wasn't it? It hasn't worked since then. And Boubacar was a bit rash on.
But it was a breath of fresh air, wasn't it?
It's what Noki's just been calling for, someone to get stuck in and make a tackle and be a bit nasty. And for me, he starts every game. It's just energy in his legs, if nothing else, which is something we haven't got.
Well, we haven't got energy and legs in the team. And I think Ben will correct me if I'm wrong on this, but last season, his team didn't do well, but he was the 3rd most productive presser in European football. If ever a player screamed to play for Wolves midfield with energy and desire, it was him. Knocker, any other tactical reason why he's not starting, or have we covered it? I just wanted to say reducer again, to be honest.
No, I mean, I think Chris has covered it perfectly well. He's exactly what we need in midfield. He won't play him. I kind of think there's a pressure to play Moutinho, and Davis isn't quite strong enough to overstep that and bring Boubacar in. That's my kind of feeling on it. I think he's doing what he wants to do to keep people happy, but he should be in that team. If you keep doing the same things over and over again and you're still not getting the results, then you've only got yourself to blame, haven't you?
Well, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but do Brentford still play 5-3-2? Is that still their setup?
Yeah.
So if Wolves go next week with Moutinho against quite a mobile and fit Brentford 3, it's going to go bad and bad quickly. Traore has to start in midfield next week, as does Nunes, as does Neves. It can be no other 3 for me.
Yeah, that's fine. But I know we're harping on it, but if I'm thinking about Leicester, and it's exactly what they did, they're happy to keep the ball, play with it patiently. And if you sit off them, they can pick you off as and when they want, which is exactly what they did. And I looked at that midfield as soon as the teams were out, and I was like, Leicester are going to be absolutely licking their lips.
Yeah, we knew it. We all knew it.
Yeah.
If Wolves were in a position where they were dominating possession, you want João Moutinho in the team, because you can do that. If you're going to be there, he doesn't really waste the ball, to be honest. He recycles it very well. But your job in that position is to cover your fullback and to get forward and support as well. It's a very physical position. We're literally playing one of our most technically gifted footballers, and we're exposing him for the weakest part of his game. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And this isn't a slight on João Moutinho, because I feel sorry for him as well, because he's a miserable loser, and I'm sure he'll be. I'm pretty sure he'll be feeling it. But what's he supposed to do in that position? You know what I mean? It's just he's on an absolute hiding to nothing. He's a fit guy, of course he is, but he's not going to have the engine to do that anymore. And we are getting exposed every week for that. And well, if it happens at Brentford, we'll talk about Brentford later on, but we'll just get overrun and we'll having another miserable podcast and no one watching it. Not even my parents will watch then. So
we did. Sorry to jump in, Rob, but statistically, we did dominate possession. We had more of the ball than they did. It's what we do with it. I mean, we had those opportunities to score, didn't. They broke them, and almost every shot flew in the back of the net because they had that clinical edge to us. So we're having plenty of the ball. We're just not effective with how we use it. We're very much sideways and backwards, and eventually someone gets bored and whacks one upfield for Adama to run onto.
But they're simple goals. That's the point on Adama. I agree, Ben, with you. He's trying, but why haven't we found a way to get him in positions where he can hurt the opposition even more? He picks the ball up 9 times out of time on the halfway line. So he's got to turn, he's got to beat a man straight away, and then he's running at 3 or 4. Look at their goals, the 1-2s. We don't ever score a goal like the Barnes goal. 1-2, bang, finish. I mean, Adama, that should be bread and butter to him, but we don't get in those positions. We don't work it well enough. The Vardy cross, similar. Get out wide, physically cross. They're simple goals, aren't they? But we haven't found a way to get the best out of him, I don't think. But he's always picking the ball up so deep.
I mean, we was on about the fact that Vardy was one of 2 or one of 3 players that was there to tap it in? How many times have Wolves got 3 players there in the box when a cross comes in? It never happens.
It's a fair point though, Ben, and that you've raised again and highlighted. Traoré does deserve some praise. His productivity may not have been the best, even though the 2 games before he had 1 goal and 1 assist. So is that right? Did he win a penalty in score? Have I got that right?
Yeah, Forrest was the pen, and Adama he scored at Palace.
Yeah. So Ben's right. That guy, and I think he gets a lot of unfair criticism. He's very much a Marmite player. You love him or you hate him, but I think the way he is as a player, people just assume that he's not that guy. For me, I think you don't keep in that physical condition if you're not a dedicated professional. I mean, he's got a fantastic physique, and obviously it's not all about that. But I agree with Ben. I know I'm digressing a bit there, but I think that guy has tried. And
what podcast we were talking about?
Yeah. I do love him, but he is trying, and you two are right. We need to find a way to use him better, and he's criminally. It almost thinks that you need 2 centre forwards in the box if he's going to put the crosses in, because not many people are going to stop him unless they double up on him. We're just not using. We've got 1 player in the box, haven't we? And if Costa doesn't win, it's not going to anybody. So, but yeah, I think Adama's application should be credited. Maybe not the quality of the weekend, but in terms of trying his best and giving it all, I agree with Ben. So yeah, 23 minutes gone of episode 44 of the Wolves Report with Ben Husband, Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Leicester. Moving away from the Leicester game now, which I think we'll all be glad to do. Other than that 8 wonderful minutes, Knocky. There's been a lot talked about the club's hierarchy this week, the custodians, and in the stands at the weekend there was quite a lot aimed Scott Sellers' way. Some may be justified, some may not. But the question I'm asking, and I'm not saying he's totally innocent, because I'm not even sure what he does, to be honest, or how much responsibility he has, because what he said in Ask Wolves and what I'm hearing now feel like 2 different things. So I don't really know. But for me, the issues at the club at the moment are all stem from the very top. And I'm really surprised. I mean, people can sing and chant what they want at football. It's not for me or anyone to tell them what to do. But I'm really surprised it was aimed at Sellers and not Jeff Shee. Ben, your take on that situation?
And Scott Sellers is, to the outside world, he is the figurehead. And if you give him a title like technical director, then people are going to point the blame. And look, as much as we're frustrated with them at the moment, Fosun have got a lot more goodwill in the eyes of supporters than Scott Sellers has, because people don't know what he does. I mean, you know, the sounds this week are about how little influence he has over proceedings. But I think it was back in March, he was talking about the transfer committee, and he said, I don't want to sign players that Lars doesn't want, and I don't ever want to sign players that he wants and I don't want. It's very much a team decision. So he's either involved in transfers or he's not involved in transfers. you can't pick and choose and take credit for it when it's going well, because back in March, this was before the bad run had started and the slide began. It's okay to take credit for anything you want then. And I think the frustration is Wolves fans haven't got a figurehead that they can point to. And look, ultimately, it will go higher than Sellers because he's clearly not in control of. I mean, even if you look at this summer's transfers, because I had a look at the statements when we signed like certain players, and Nunes, Guedes had comments only from Jeff Shee, didn't have anything from Sellers, and then Boubacar Traoré was the only player that had a comment from Sellers saying they'd been tracking him for 2 years. So I think it's fair to say that one probably had his fingerprints on. But I don't understand what he's doing if he's not in control of everything. It's just we just ran like no other club in the Premier League, and it's difficult for fans to know where to point anger. So it's all right with people coming out and saying it shouldn't be directed at him, but Wolves fans don't know where it should be directed because there's no transparency.
Well, for me, Ben, any business is failing. You point to the person in charge, because if someone's not doing their job properly below you, it's down to you to change that. So unless that person is the voice or the figurehead, like you say now, and he's copying the flack because the guy above him's not doing anything or not saying anything. So, so in his job role, should he take some responsibility of what's going on? Absolutely. But Jeff Shee employs him. And if he's not doing well, then it's down to Jeff to take the responsibility. And I really think, not that I'm asking for any issues whatsoever, I think in terms of social media, I think Jeff Shee has got very lightly in compared to Scott Sellers. Very lightly.
Undoubtedly.
So why is Sellers still there and Bellwell and Dalrymple on? Does that tell you a bit about Sellers, that he's happy to be a bit of a nodding yes man? The other two seem to question him, and they both were out the door pretty quick, weren't they? And Sellers seems to be lingering around. I'm only speculating. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, but that's a really good point. I've never met Scott Sellers. I have met Jeff Shee, but I can't say I've never spoken to Scott. I don't know. I don't really know what he does, to be honest. If I had to guess, I would say that, I don't know, Noki's talked about this in the past, and we've sort of crossed swords a bit on it, but I'm pretty sure that Mendes holds a lot more in terms of influence, in terms of managerial appointments and transfers. He's the go-to guy for me. That's my opinion. It's not a fact. I don't know. But that's just the impression I'm getting. And this slowly now is starting to unravel itself. And it's the main reason for the mess that we're in, to be honest.
I think what's happened as well this week is, before we went into the Leicester game, I'm not sure whose podcast it was, but someone put Scott Sellers under the bus a little bit in terms of firing out that he makes tactical decisions and he gets involved in those kind of activities, and he's in constant communication with the bench during games. And then there was a picture appeared of him with a tactics board after it had been debunked. So I think he becomes the face of that target, and it's difficult to know who to aim it at, really. I mean, I'm not sure I'm aiming it at Fosun, because they did spend a hell of a lot of money in the summer. The fact the signings were wrong or weren't good enough, that's not really on Fosun, that's on the entire team. I think Jeff Shee has got away with it lightly. I don't think he's going to get away with it for much longer. But I think with Sellers, the comment he made around the transfers that Ben alluded to, the stuff that come out about him being involved in the tactical decisions, and the fact that we've got no communication at all. And like Chris said with Dalrymple, he's stood up to it and he was kicked out the door, wasn't he? And he was a really, really important character, I think. When this started originally with Fosun, he was such a big link between the supporters and the team, and you really felt engaged with the club. I feel like since he's left, I now feel like a customer as opposed to a supporter. I feel like I'm there just to fill a seat more than anything else. And whereas under Dalrymple, you kind of had that family element back that we had when we was back in League One, perhaps, when they really wanted you there and needed you there, and we've lost that. And there just seems to be a bit of an arrogance about Jeff Shee and Scott Sellers that this is our club, we'll run it how we want to run it, and you're going to kind of deal with it. That's the sort of feeling that I get. I don't think their people skills are where they need to be for the positions they're in.
Just one thing I want to jump on there, and I'm not justifying it, but it's not unusual for many clubs to have someone sat in the stands giving a tactical analysis from a different point of view of the game. Now, if it's not the technical director, then who's going to do it? Because they're not novices, because they've been professional managers managing, not the Premier League, but they've been managing. So for that side of things, it's not unusual. I'm not justifying him doing it, but if how do we know Steve Davis doesn't want someone up there giving him a second eye on it? Who else is going to do it? I don't know. I'm not sticking it for him. I'm playing devil's advocate.
No, I think
that's where we're at, right? We haven't got a man. It would normally be part of the coaching setup. Would be sat in the stand with a different view of the game, radioing down to the manager. We've got 2 guys at the minute having to put the cones out before the warm-up. So they haven't got that support. So there's no one else to do it. So he could innocently be saying, well, I need to help Steve out. I'll go and do this. He could be doing it for all of the right reasons. And like the guys have alluded to, it could easily backfire because of the perception. And I think that's the problem. Everyone is coming up with their own ideas because no one knows. And I think while that's the case, it's always going to be speculation, isn't it, ultimately?
I think if we're winning games, the issue is now that we're losing games, it's a problem.
Yeah. I think what Fosun have discovered pretty quickly, and if they didn't know already, is once you remove the manager, you're then exposed to the criticism because that layer's removed. So Wolves what we can say Steve Davis made a tactical error, but we know that he's not the manager and he's never going to be the manager. So what's the point in wasting your energy in debating his tactical decision? You instantly go higher. Because, I mean, when Lars was in charge, you could vent your frustrations with the manager because the manager's making incorrect decisions. But when you remove that manager and say that there's no outstanding candidates to replace him, and you believe that putting in your under 20, your academy coaches is a more viable option than going out and looking outside of 2 names, then you leave yourself open to that criticism. And that's exactly what they're facing now. And they'll realise pretty quickly that it's only going to get worse as well because Wolves fans haven't got anywhere else to vent.
It is only going to get worse, and I don't see at any point are the fans going to turn on Davis. It's only going to get worse for Sellers and for Shea. I don't see them at all. We know the situation Davis is in. I didn't know what Tyler had said there in terms of he doesn't want to manage. He wants to do what he's doing, what he's good at, and that's a shame. So he's in an even worse situation. But again, does he say this is too much? But if this doesn't change soon, Wolves are going to be in big trouble and they're not going to be able to point anybody. I don't see how they can't have someone in. If you can't get the man or somebody in by, you've got a second hit of a pre-season. All the teams doing well won't want the break. Teams like us are desperate for it. We can reset, get a new man in. You can put the new ideas, new philosophy together. 5, 6, 7 weeks is it off with the World Cup? That's a long time for a new coach to have a pre-season in. And I think they've put Davis's name down until 2023 to buy them some time. However, they wasn't expecting to be getting slapped at home by Leicester 4-0. And now they'll be thinking, we need to hurry up with this. Lopetegui, I don't know. But just going back to the original point of the custodians, this is just one of many poor decisions that's been made probably for the last 18 months. I mean, we could all list them off now. For me, the beginning of the end for Bruno last season, and no one talked about it, was letting Adama go. Adama was just coming into form. He was started scoring goals. Yeah, one disallowed at Brentford. He scored at Southampton. He was looking like a danger man. And we had a chat and someone off the bench that could change a game, someone that was just coming into form. For me, from that moment on, when you lose that option, there's less pressure on the players playing. And there's no option from the bench then. So for me then, I mean, that's one of the first bad decisions. And then you look at Fabio.
Go back to that deal. Scott Sellers said it was a great deal for all parties. So you're coming back to the guy that's getting the stick. No one can tell me he's telling the truth there. Nobody can say he honestly thought that was a good move for all parties because it didn't work out for any of them in the end.
Well, do you know what he said as well in there that I found really interesting, and I'm surprised he didn't get more scrutinised more, was that in that deal he said it was a good deal for the agent. Honestly, who cares what deal is good for any agent anywhere? They're in football, some would say a necessary evil, but they're there to help people out. And there's a lot of players that rely on their agent if they're out of work and whatever. That's fine, but to state that it's a good deal for the agent,
it probably shows the influence a certain agent has at our football club, which we all know about, and we've taken the good times with it. Obviously, that's happened, but for me, you talk about decisions. The biggest mistake was sacking Bruno without somebody lined up. You all know my thoughts on Bruno. I didn't think he was the right manager for Wolves, But if you've got nobody lined up, you don't sack him. You keep him in the job until you've got someone there. Because we're worse off now. We haven't got to.
We are.
Now, so.
At the end of last season, on this show, it's only because he did a nice video pre-season and I fell for it and hold my hands up for that. But at the end of last season, I was like, I saw enough last year. This guy is not good enough. He's not taking Wolves in the right direction. I just watched Timor Pukki. I watched Connor Cody make Timor Pukki look like Pele for that game against Norwich. And Wolves were just getting worse and worse. It was a decent first half at Liverpool, and that was just like the last show. And I thought, this guy's got to go. He didn't. I'm led to believe that Wolves did try and replace in the summer, but they couldn't get who they want. I don't have that confirmed either way. I believe they wanted Lopetegui in the summer. I believe he said no again. Again, that's not confirmed. That's just what the rumour mill, I'm told, this has been said. So it's crazy, isn't it, that you'd spend over 100 million and then give that manager all those players and he's gone so quickly. But he had to go, Tyler. But guys, I mean, as you rightly said then, how have they not got a plan in place for this? This is like, there should be an ever-evolving shortlist of managers of who fits your philosophy of what you're doing looking forward. Nocky, how has that not happened? How are we looking so amateurish?
I think they have got a plan. It's not a very good.
Please tell us.
I think they've got one. I still think they want Lopetegui. I mean, when we had Jackie Oakley on the show a couple of weeks ago, I said then that I felt they would go with a caretaker until the World Cup, in which case Lopetegui's in a position to take over. I don't think you would commit to giving Steve Davis until 2023 unless you're absolutely certain you've got something sorted the other end of it. And you can look really amateur if you then sack him after 2 or 3 games and bring in a new manager. So my suspicion is, and it kind of has been from the start, that we're going to limp along regardless, and then Lopetegui will take over after the World Cup. That's my suspicion. I may be way off, but I just feel that we've committed too strongly to not bringing anyone in for it to be a plan. Because what happens if we'd have beat Leicester, or Leicester lose at the weekend and Brendan Rodgers is a free agent and we're not going to go after him? You know, he'd be perfect for us, but I think they've just committed to it because I think that deal's already done.
So why not announce that when you're saying that Steve Davis is going to be the caretaker? That turns the atmosphere straight away. If Wolves are, if that plan is in place, and
fair point.
And if you're saying they wouldn't do this without that acknowledgement, then Wolves could have got that deal done and said Steve Davis will be manager until this date. Then Lopetegui, if he's then going to be coming to the club, because I mean, we're talking about plans and stuff, and you were mentioning about an ever-evolving shortlist. The Brighton sporting director, because they hire a sporting director at Brighton who does jobs that sporting directors do at every other club in the country. He said as soon as they hire a new manager, the first thing he tasks his team with is finding the next manager.
Yeah.
They'll have a criteria of things that they want, of types of managers that they want, and they'll have separate lists if they want a manager that they're going to do this with the playing style, or they're going to do this with the playing style. And then when they hit that point, so when Graham Potter went to Chelsea, Brighton could go, right, we've got this guy, this guy, this guy, we'll interview all 3, we'll hire the best of that. They already knew, they'd already spent all the time researching that, and they made an appointment. And we'll see whether that appointment works. But for me, I'm as interested in process over results anyway, because if Wolves could now fluke this and get someone like, I don't know, I've just seen Vitor Pereira, just another Portuguese manager that's just been linked. And he might come in and he might turn out to be a really good appointment, and you go, wow, but that's not, the process is still wrong. So that's why Wolves have made 4 appointments since Fosun came in, and they got 1 right and the rest haven't worked.
Just going back on one thing there, Ben, isn't there a danger of, because obviously he's got a really delicate family situation, and that's obviously a horrible thing for people to have to go through when they've got a parent ill. Isn't there a danger, though, that if they announce that if something happens, always like, and he changes his mind again, and that leaves Wolves humiliated, doesn't it?
Okay, fair enough. But then don't say there's no outstanding candidates, because when you go and speak to someone else, they know that you've already referred to them as someone that's not an outstanding candidate. So you've either got your man and you're happy to rule everyone else out, or you haven't got your man and you keep a process open. Because what Wolves have done now is they've backed themselves into a corner again. Because if they go and speak to someone, like, they know, because they fed it out wide, briefed enough people that Lopetegui was their first choice, didn't get him. Then Beale was their outstanding choice, didn't get him. And then they put it in writing that there's no other candidates that they want. So how can they? How, like, people with Sean Dyche was on Monday Night Football yesterday, and people were like, oh yeah, he's speaking really well, speaking really nicely. You're telling me Sean Dyche's personality, if they went to him now and said, do you fancy a crack at this? My response would be, well, 3 days ago, you just said I wasn't a candidate for this job. So you either give me all the power that I need, or I'm going to tell you where to go, because you've clearly not rated me as a manager.
Yeah, totally, bro.
Yeah, and again, this, it feels like there's the decision making at the top of the club. Then it's just been, as you said there, it's been exposed again in terms of, there's no one else out there we fancy. You don't need to say that. You can say we're extending our searches. The caretaker manager will be, but you don't have to use that terminology, do you? Like you said though, because it doesn't feel like something a sporting director like someone at Brighton would say. But yeah, it's for me. I want to be proud of my football club. It's a bit embarrassing at the moment. The results are embarrassing. There's rival fans laughing at us. That's embarrassing, and you shouldn't feel like about your club. So, if you're going to treat the club and run your club badly, then criticism's going to come your way. So they need to act soon before it gets even worse. Well, that was a fun section. Let's move on to some questions. As always, the show is recorded live, but we take the questions usually from my Twitter feed, and I'll try and pick out 4 or 5 good questions that we can throw to the panel tonight. So let's start a few off, and this seems like it's on topic. At what point does the Mendes link get looked at? Seems he's an unofficial director of football. This cannot be right with his agency having links to Foss, and surely is it putting management candidates? Not sure what that means, but yeah, the link there between Fosun and Wolves, as you said then, Tyler, we've reaped the rewards from it, but now we probably need to spread a little wider, don't we? And we haven't really got anyone in the club that seems to have the ability to find a manager. So at what point does this relationship need to be scrutinised more?
I think by now, isn't it? It's probably too late now. I've read an article today. I think Chelsea looking to interview, is it 3 or 4 candidates, head of recruitment. I know they're a different level of step above, but their new chairman's come in and he's looking at putting that layer of expertise in at recruitment, sporting director, something else. We're a million miles away from that. Like Ben says, we're just not run properly. We rely on one person in Mendes to do all of our business. And I think it's still too early to tell on the signings this season. But if we do drill down into the signings, there's been as much bad as there has been good, hasn't there, really? So, I don't know. I think he's probably still here to stay. I think he'll probably select the next manager. I think that'll probably end up being a Mendes client. It's the way they're running the football club, isn't it? So unless Fosun do something pretty drastic in replacing she and Sellers with a layer of football expertise, I don't see the relationship changing. Yeah,
and as Ben said, hopefully a manager will come in and it'll just part fluke, click, whatever. But I hope it turns out right, because at the moment we are absolutely desperate. But I don't think that relationship can be looked at now, but it certainly needs something looking at in the future, because we don't want to upset anybody, because I'd say come January, we're going to need a little bit more help, because otherwise it's not going to get any better. Thanks for your question, Gary.
So just on that again, so Ben mentioned about sellers and large signing players. You then throw Mendes into the link as well. So that's a minimum of 3 people who are all having a say on these transfers and on these players. Get a head of recruitment in to work with the new manager. And like you said, Sean Dyche isn't the sort of manager that's going to take whoever he's given from a Mendes client. He's going to want his say and his word. And is that another reason why we're not attractive to managers? Because I think that's what the guy meant. Is it putting managers off? It's going to put strong-willed managers off because they can't have a say on who they want to buy.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, glad you jumped in. Thanks for Tyler's cleared that up for us, Gary, so thank you. Greg regularly contributed to the Wolves Report, 3G. Greg, assuming you all feel the same as I do, that we need a new manager now. Who do you think is the best suited to our current predicament? Well, we're going to go to obviously the journalist expert here, Ben. I mean, for me, I agree with what the guy said. It feels like it's inevitable it's going to be Lopetegui. But is there anyone out there within Wolves' grasp?
Not within Wolves' grasp, no, because they look at about 3 people. So, as we've just mentioned, like Mick Beale's basically come out today and said he's not said it in pointed terms, but he's mentioned the fact that he was allowed to bring in the coaches that he wanted at QPR, build his own coaching team. He was allowed to recruit the type of players that he wanted. So that we're narrowing our search straight away. It's difficult to look past Lopetegui because it makes too much sense that that's what it's going to be. But it needs to be someone pragmatic, and I didn't want that to be the case. But Wolves are in a situation where they need to start picking up points, and this appointment has to be right, because if it's not, then Wolves are going to get relegated. So they have to look at. I mean, I wouldn't even be that averse to someone like Sean Dyche now, and I know it's a controversial thing to say, and I don't think there's a chance that he would take the job in the current setup that there is at the club.
Just a quick poll then, boys. Hands up if you take Sean Dyche now. There we go.
He's better than what we've got. We haven't got a football manager at the moment.
100%. Sorry to jump in then, Ben. Just thought gauge a little bit of opinion. So for anyone listening and not watching, that was a unanimous 4 out of 4 for Sean Dyche.
Most people have turned off now anyway after that vote.
But the point is, the survival of Wolverhampton Wanderers and the mission to finish 17th is more important than any style of football, any manager. The most important thing now is to come to the end of May and Wolves to be in the Premier League. That's all that matters. I don't care how ugly it is. I don't know who's in chair. I don't care who they sell. I want Wolves to finish 17th. That is the most important thing right now.
And look, when Newcastle appointed Eddie Howe last year, I laughed because I'd seen him at Bournemouth and I thought the bloke's an absolute fraud. But he's reinvented himself at Newcastle and he looks a really good, tactically astute manager. And we'll see to me, there's no harm in saying to Sean Dyche, the worst case scenario is that he comes in, we stink the place out and we stay up. That to me is worst case scenario.
That's success. Wolves finish 17th now. That's success. It sounds ridiculous, 11 games in or whatever we are, but finishing 17th now after this abysmal flop to the start of the season, I'm taking survival right now.
That's the flaw for me for Dyche. I don't see him coming and Wolves get relegated, in my opinion. So you're either saying it's going to be terrible, but Wolves will stay up, or he's got a better squad than he's ever worked with in his entire career.
And let's not. He got Burnley to 17th and got him into European football with that squad.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Sean, if you're listening, I'm sorry you didn't like one of my articles a few years ago back. I hope that doesn't put you off, and you can come to.
He's only human, Ryan. To be fair.
Thank you for your question, Greg. I'm not going to give us lots of answers, but I think we're Lopetegui or Sean Dyche. I think we covered this a little bit earlier on. Actually, we should have this one for comedy value. This is Mike Allen. Just read the question. For anyone listening and not watching, Mike's asking what is happening. Drop me a DM and I'll give you my opinion, but things that can't be said on here right now. But yeah, great question. I think we all feel that. Sean Mitchell, also a regular contributor. Why does Moutinho seem undroppable? Nocky, do you want this one or shall I have it?
You have that one.
Okay, mate, good. I'm glad you said that. Wait until you see the next one. I think he holds a huge influence in the dressing room. We covered this earlier on. I think he's for his lack of mobility, not to go box to box, he's still a tremendously gifted footballer. So in the short 5-a-side games and the pitches they play, he must still be one of the best players out there. I'm absolutely convinced of it. However, we're paying him still 100 grand. He's top earner, big influencer. I just think, I would hope the manager's strong enough to pick the team he wants. But for me, I didn't understand how he wasn't on the bench and Traoré starting the weekend. So what is him undroppable? I think there's reputation, a little bit of player power, and maybe a bit of tactical naivety. That might sound harsh, but it's got to be one of 3, hasn't it? Because there's no reason Traoré should not have started ahead of him the weekend. Thanks for your question, Sean. Let's have a little look now. This is a good one for you, Knocker. It's not too bad. Better than the ones you had last week. 10 months ago, we were playing Arsenal for 4th place. Remember that night, Tyler? What big decisions do you think Jeff Shea and Sellers have got wrong since then? All right, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mark Knock.
He's only got 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, I was just saying. I think it's just been a catalogue of cock-ups, hasn't it, if we're being completely honest. I think you started with the Adama deal. We didn't reinforce when we were in a strong position last season, when we were desperate for another striker. I just think there's been lots of small mistakes which have added up to
Adama, Fabio loan this season.
Yeah, and we don't learn from them, do we? I mean, we're going to loan Neves out with a view to a permanent deal in January. We're probably going to lose Adama in January as well, because we won't want to lose him for free at the end of the season. So I think we've got people in charge of the club who I don't think are football people, and I put Scott Sellers in that mix as well. I think we need real, genuine football people who understand the game. I mean, you look at Villa, their second manager, and then they replace him in 72 hours. That's what you need to be doing. That's what other football clubs do. That's what Brighton have done. I think there's an arrogance about us that we think we'll be absolutely fine. We don't need to worry about it, and we just keep repeating the same mistakes. And to have not sorted our goal-scoring issues out for really 4 years, we haven't been scoring goals. To have only this season finally brought in another centre-half, again, it's criminal, some of the stuff that we've done. But we got away with it because we had 2 really strong seasons, because we were very, very organised under Nuno. But even in those seasons, we weren't particularly prolific. We just managed to win football matches. And now that we've lost that, it's becoming evident where the problems are.
I'm glad you said that. Another quick straw poll, lads. Would you take Nuno back now, yes or no? Hands up for yes.
Above who?
Anybody. I'm just asking if you would take it. I'm
Steve Davis.
If it's Nuno or nothing, I'm having Nuno in a heartbeat. Yeah. I said Terry in a heartbeat in a minute.
So do we roll the dice and wait for Lopetegui maybe in January, or if you can definitely get Nuno now, are you taking him?
Taking him. I'll send this to the dice one. If he comes in tomorrow, I don't think we'll get relegated.
Yeah, if I could have a choice, it'd be Sean Dyche, even if it was just at the end of the season with a $3 million bonus if you keep us up, and then we can even renegotiate and send you on your way. I'll take him. But I mean, do we bring Nuno back? We've sold pretty much everyone who works in the Nuno formation. So would he have the impact we want him to? We're not going to be able to bring Cody back. We're not going to be able to bring Doc back. So would it work with him now, because he hasn't got the players to play those attacking positions that we used to play, and we've lost Jimenez? I don't think it would work with Nuno either, to be honest. I think we need a good manager in now, and the fact that we're a Premier League club who can only pick from 2 or 3 managers is embarrassing in itself.
Again, I've got Mark Knock to say Reducia and Sean Dyche in the same night. I'm having a bit of fun to myself here. Got to take the win somehow, haven't I? Yeah, but interested about at Nuno. Tricky one. I don't know. I think you should never go back. There's a real good chance if you can and do all the good work, and I wouldn't want that legacy to be broken. But again,
like Ben said, if it's Nuno or Steve Davis, it's not even a conversation to be had.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. Just jumping on that as well, there seems to be a lot of rumours and talk of a new manager not being able to bring his own backroom staff in. Well, the last manager, Bruno Lage, we sacked all the backroom staff apart from the goalkeeper coach. So I don't believe that's true. I mean, I can't see how Wolves is going to start plucking out random first-team coaches and fitness people. I just don't see that. They can't even find a manager. We're in the most lucrative league in world football. They're not going to be out picking out other specialists. So, I mean, I don't know if it is true, but I struggle to believe that the club are saying, you've got to have that backroom staff, because we don't have a backroom staff.
But in fairness, they've got an academy coach as the manager, so they can probably get someone to be a set pieces coach or something, can't they?
What are you doing the weekend, Ben?
Exactly. That's yeah.
But Lopetegui, he's not going to say yes if he can't bring his own people with him.
There's no way a manager of the ex-Spain and Real Madrid manager can't bring his own staff 100% and bring his own staff. And if it comes to Nuno as well, I think every single one of his old team is unemployed now. I'm sure he would bring them all back as well. But interesting times ahead. I want Lopetegui and I want him yesterday. But like you said, if it can be no one else, without being disrespectful to Nuno, I think we have to take him as well. Thanks for the question, Kev. We've gone all over the place there. We mentioned this a little bit earlier on. I think I did. Niku, Lal, good evening. say that all needs to be said about the people above, but the last couple of games I've seen a real lack of effort on the pitch. It's very worrying. Nocky, you can have that one again. Have you had one yet, Ben? You had the first one. Go on, Nocky.
I completely agree. I said earlier on that I think they're hiding. I think that they're using the lack of confidence as a bit of an excuse. They're professional footballers, and I think there should be more effort as a minimum in there. So I completely agree. Yeah, I do think that there's a lack of effort. I think there's a lack of courage, a lack of passion as well, I'd say. And there's players who are absolutely hiding, and some of the more experienced players as well, because they're being shown up by the likes of Hugo Bueno, who's still running his backside off us, all the way through the match, whereas some of your others would disappear down a tunnel in a heartbeat if they had the chance.
Just on that though, someone like Johnny, he's not going to not try. He just looks dead and buried. He's too professional. He doesn't get where he is. He doesn't come back from those injuries if he's not trying. So I think it is a bit of a mixture of the two, isn't it? I don't know if they're not trying. Podence, I know he gets criticism as well, but he was trying to make things happen again. He was trying to get involved. I don't know if I fully agree. Johnny's not going to not try.
Look at Semedo against Palace when he left Zaha and didn't chase him back. He could have got to that. He could have made that more difficult, and he's just jogging back.
Yeah. My thoughts on Semedo. I've always been dubious on him, but Johnny, no one could ever question his commitment, could they? Really? Is he just totally broken, like Ben said? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes as well, passion takes over, doesn't it? And you see things through your gold-tinted glasses, and the red mist that kicks in, and then a bad pass or something, and you think maybe people aren't trying and they can do better. We've got to take in consideration as well that the players are shot to pieces. There's a team full of broken footballers at the moment who mentally don't look in the right place, which also then exposes in terms of their physical attributes, because these half the team don't look fit. So mentally not strong, not looking 100% fit, and low confidence. That is a terrible trio of a combination, and they're all being exposed. So do I think they're all giving their absolute all? No. Do I think some of them are still giving it all? Yes. I think there's a few that could be doing more, definitely. Thank you for your question, Nicole. Moving ahead to the game at Brentford on Saturday.
Do we have to?
We have to. Well, I'm going, mate. So, for me, I'll start things off. I think this is an absolute no-brainer. I think Semedo comes in for Johnny, tick. I think Traore comes in for Martinho, tick. I think Ait-Nouri comes in for Bueno, to be honest. I'd leave Traore in. I'd leave Costa in. Podence is still trying, but he's infuriating 50% of the fan base. There's only so long you can stick up for him until he gets without getting an assist or a goal. When he entertains, he's tremendous, but need productivity. Has Guedes got himself up to fitness to play in the side now? We've not seen enough for him. Is it time to bring him back in? Over to you, Ben.
No.
Come on, mate.
But Wolves don't create chances, and Podence is one of the few players that does. However annoying the flicks are, and they are absolutely infuriating. You said he's not got a goal and assist. If Costa scores the one against Palace, that's an assist. The keeper pulls off a worldie against Leicester, that's a goal and assist. He can't control Costa taking an extra 2 touches and not putting the ball away. And for me, Wolves have to focus on players that can create things. I think Traore can create things out of nothing, as we've seen when Wolves haven't been good in the past. And I think Podence does it in different ways. And the most important thing for me is they've got to find a way of getting Nunes in his best position, because people are thinking he's not a good player. He is a good player. Wolves are making him look a bad player. So that is number one priority for me.
What we're going to do at Brentford, Knocker? Or what should we do at Brentford?
Get hammered is what I think we're going to do.
We know we shouldn't get Brentford. Come on.
I think in terms of what we should do, I'm similar to you.
Is there a way we go to? Is there a way he rolls the dice and goes 4-2-3-1? Because I don't think we're confident enough for that, and I think Brentford will overrun us in a 3 there. Yeah, so I think it has to be a 3.
You're not going to go for. I love 4-2-3-1, and I think a switch to that would suit us, but I don't see him doing that in this game. I think they'll be too strong in midfield for us if we do that. I think we'll go 4-3-3. I'll keep Costa. You've got to keep Podence. I mean, there's nothing I've seen from Guedes to make me think he's going to be an improvement on Podence. And as you rightly said, if it's not Podence's fault that we're missing the chances, he's getting us into those positions.
Right point,
so
yeah.
I think it'd be absolute madness to drop him, to be honest. I think Costa looked dangerous against Leicester. I think potentially there's a goal coming for him. So I'm sticking with Costa, and you've absolutely got to keep Traore. So I'll go 4-3-3. And every the other changes, I'd agree with what you said.
Tyler, any tactical tweaks for you?
No, full house from me. But the only thing I was going to say is that we get overrun when we play through midfield.
Yeah,
Palace overran us. Leicester.
I would disagree in the first half. I think.
Not at all, mate.
I think
speed of a seller's part, mate.
I thought Wolves were good the first half. I thought Wolves fell apart when Traore went off. In comparison to the last two games we played them before that, they absolutely bossed our midfield.
Mate.
Yeah, say again.
They had two in there, and we had three. So you should. We should have on Sunday. We didn't. Well, so the stats for this evening, yeah, we had 60% possession. But as I've said on it before, it's all safe possession. It's safe, isn't it? It's easy. It's recycled football. That doesn't work for me. So I'm not going 4-2-3-1, but I don't think the argument's that big, really, because I think we lose midfield battles either way.
Yeah, I can't really argue, but I can't. As much as I'm a purist and I love 4-2-3-1. The idea and the romance of that sounds good. I just can't. For a team with no confidence, go a goal down there. It's going to get really, really ugly. But anyway, here comes the fun part of the show. Let's give you some back. And we'll start off with our Mr. Middle. Knocker, give me your first scorer and your score for Brentford.
Oh.
You're going to turn that bloody music off or what?
My head tells me it's going to be 3-0 to Brentford, but I'll go with me out on this one. I'll go 1-1. And Buemo with the first goal because he's got a great name.
Ben, first scorer and score at Brentford.
Tony penalty, 3-0 Brentford.
Oh, mate, there's no need for that, is there?
I mean, he's right, isn't he? But don't want to hear it.
He's absolutely right. Tyler?
Yeah, 2-0, Tony.
Well, I can't end the show on misery. I've got to pretend that I believe. So I'll go 1-0 and Costa. Do I believe it? No, but I'm going. You've got to believe it. So this has been episode 44 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to Ben from Mirror Football coming in and sharing his expertise with us. Thank you to Tyler and thank you to Knocker. Keep going. We're going to look up, can't we? Can it get worse or can it? I don't know. Up the Wolves.